I'm Maggie Stiefvater. I am the author of novels about cars, magic, and killer horses, and today I am going to tell you one of my worst car stories. All right, so I'm going to start this story with a cast of characters. It's going to be Maggie Stiefvater, that's me, I'm the protagonist. And then there's John Green, he's an author. There's also a man called the Mansky. He is a service manager at an undisclosed Mitsubishi dealership. There's also a man named Greg. He's a Greg. He's also a tuner. And it also stars my Mitsubishi Evo X, which in case you don't know what they are, they're basically a 300 horsepower all-wheel drive, turbocharged wet dream of every single Lancer driver out there. The setting for this story is actually my midlife crisis. And I know that most people in their midlife crisis, they buy a fast car, but I already had plenty of fast cars that I'd done stupid things in, so I decided instead that I was going to turn my Evo from a car into a fire-breathing dragon. So I hired the Mansky to put in a giant engine and a giant turbo, and at the same time, John Green, he contacted me on Twitter and he challenged me to a race. Whatever car is your fastest car at the moment, that's what I want to race you in. And I thought, yeah, because you know what, I'll basically race anyone in anything, whether or not it's a good idea or I think I will win. And also I had a rumor out there that John Green had a Tesla, and I thought, Tesla versus an Evo, that sounds hot. The race parameters changed along the way. I found out that we weren't doing our super sexy drag race as I thought. Instead, they had actually shut down a quarter-mile dirt oval in Princeton, Minnesota, and instead of a Tesla, I would be racing John Green in a loaner race car. There was a problem with my car. I was supposed to have it 3 weeks before the race, and instead, Greg, the tuner, said he was having some problems with the software. Excuses piled upon excuses. He told me the car was leaning out. He finally delivered it to me one day before I had to leave to drive from Virginia to Minneapolis for this race. And so they gave it to me and they said there's some problems with the tune, but we'll fix it when it comes back, it'll be fine. So I get in and it becomes quickly apparent that there are some problems with the fire-breathing dragon. So I begin driving and about 300 miles, a light comes on the dash. Check, engine now. And then there's a smaller blinking light next to it that's going, Greg, 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 Greg. I call the Mansky and Greg and say, look, here is the chance. I'm 300 miles from home. You can swap out this car. I can actually drive something else. All I need to know is that this car is not going to burn to the ground. Oh, he says, it's not going to burn to the ground. I kept on driving, but it quickly became apparent that when I got to Minneapolis, there was more wrong with the fire-breathing dragon. So I dropped the car off at a Mitsubishi shop while I'm at this conference, and they call me as I'm signing books, and they say, yeah, it's a problem with the VVT. Now, if you're watching at home and you don't know anything about cars, VVT stands for very, very troubling. I called the Mansky and said, this is your moment. I just need to know this car is going to burn to the ground. That's all I need to know, because you know what? I will go and I will rent a Kia and I will race John Green in that Kia. He said, no, it'll be fine. I went to the track and I'd never done a dirt oval before. I was about, I don't know, 2 laps into the practice laps, and I noticed 2 things. The first was that my car, over 2,000 RPM, sounded like angels screaming from heaven, and it was the best thing ever. The second thing was I was going to make my front yard into a dirt oval. I was pretty happy. So John Green arrives, and it takes no time to realize that, first of all, his race car is a lot slower than the fire-breathing dragon, and he's scared out of his mind, and he has a lot less experience driving. I remember I came around the turn, and I saw his car on fire, and all of his fans were screaming, and I thought, way to escalate. I mean, you are gonna burn to death in front of your fans. The staff came running out and they delivered him out of the burning car like a calf out of a burning cow. And then he got back in the car. We did another heat and I handed his ass to him. It was really satisfying, although it wasn't a lot of effort. And then I raced the compacts and it was amazing. And so here we were at the end of the race. My car had not actually caught fire, although it did stall every time I went to shift. And so my radio system kept on resetting, which meant that every single time I came past the stands, my car was playing Colombian hip hop really loud, which was not my intention. Anyway, so at the end of it, here I was holding this trophy, and John Green hadn't died in a fire, and I was thinking, I think my midlife crisis is going well. I think I fixed it. I think this is a good plan. And so the next day, still a little high, I got into the car, 17-hour drive back home. I'm in Ohio. I'm going the speed limit. And another light appears beside the Greg light. Oil pressure! And a second after that, dragon breath escapes from beneath the hood. And I hit the side of the road, and the guy who was driving the speed limit with me also pulls over to the side of the road. And I leap out and I throw open the hood. DJ, the guy in the other car, comes over and we look at the engine and it's on fire. I mean, it's not a huge fire. It was easily put out with the bottle of spring water that he had in his passenger seat, but still it was enough. The next morning when I had it towed to a local Mitsubishi dealer, they said, yeah, there's a hole in your engine. We've kept a box with the largest pieces in it for you. So here is the largest piece of the engine remaining. Everything melted. I mean, everything melted. As I sat there waiting for the tow truck, I remember that there's the Greg light flashing and the check engine light, and then everything else lit up. So it was like a holiday where the holiday was celebrated by lighting the car on fire. And the best part was that the alternator wire melted in the fire, I guess. So as the tow truck was trying to find me on the turnpike, the four-ways were slowly dimming. And the interior light was also flashing in time with them, and then it slowly faded to black like the end of the world. I travel with this one with me, just in case I ever see Greg in person again, because I'm gonna shove it up his left nostril.